Alright, welcome to part 3 of this tutorial series on making an Asteroids game. In this section, we are going to make it so that our ship can not only um, move left and right and go forwards and backwards, we are going to get it so that if he goes off the screen, he will wrap screen and come around the other side in both directions here, both left and right, so that he can do it. Okay. All right, in order to do the wrap screen thing, we're going to do something a little bit different than what most people in GameMaker would do. But the reason I'm doing it is that I find that for some reason or another, I don't know if it's a glitch with the program itself, but I find that the built-in um, wrap function, which is under here, don't add this. I'm just showing you this right now. But and go add event, and you go other outside room. This is normally where you would do a wrap screen, but the wrap screen for some reason does not work very consistently on this program. And many times I've played games and I've lost my characters or ship or something that because it doesn't come back. So this method I'm using works every time, so that's why I do it. But it does take a bit of typing, and so just be prepared for that. But a lot of it will be copy and pasting. Okay, now to make it a little bit easier. Well, let me kind of describe what's going to happen here. In this description here, I'm going to change our reading here to position there. Now, what's going to happen? Oops. We're going to get our ship going sideways here. I'm going to get him going sideways here. Okay, now I'm going to slow him down a little bit. You can see as he gets to the right edge here, you'll see he will go off of the screen partly, about halfway, or so he's completely off the screen, and then he jumps to the other side. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to say if his x value, which determines his horizontal position, is less than 0, which is this line right here, plus half of his distance, or half of his width here, then jump to the other side, go to where room width is, and add half of the distance as well. Okay, so that's basically what we're going to be doing. And in order to do that, again, it takes a little bit of typing here, but please persevere and you'll find that it will work pretty well. Our first thing we want to do to make our code a little bit more easy to type, we're going to create another variable. So go back to the create event. I'm going to zoom in here on your code, and I'm going to add one more. I'm going to call it sprite size. And again, if I was programming, I'd probably use a smaller word, but this is really, it's a descriptive name, so that's why I'm using it in this case. Sprite size, and it's going to we're going to type this in max sprite width, comma sprite height. Now the reason I'm using this code is because some of you may have brought in your own image for the ship, or have drawn your own or something like that, and I'm not sure what the size is. If I did know the size, and for instance, my sprite is 32 by 32, so I know my sprite is 32 wide. So I would be able to just use the number 32, but what this does is whatever size sprite you use, this function will work for it. So what it does is it says this part here, max sprite width, sprite height, finds whichever of these two values is larger. Is the sprite wider or taller? Now mine is the same in both directions, so it's going to give me, mine here would equal 32, because the larger of 32 and 32 is 32. So, but if you had a sprite that was, say, 60 pixels wide and 30 pixels tall, then sprite width would be 60, sprite height would be 30, so it would give you the value of 60. So the sprite size would be 60. So that's what we'll use in our function. So now the next thing we need to do is we need to go to the step event, and this is where it gets a little bit lengthy, and I might have to widen this a little bit to make it visible here, but we'll do it. And again, if ever you're having trouble keeping up with the typing, please just pause and take a good look at the code and type it in. Now I'm gonna I'm going to go a couple spaces down, so it's when I'm going and analyzing code, it's easier to be able to find things if the different sections are separated. And I'm going to do 2 slashes like this, and then I'm just going to write wrap screen. And what this does is this sets a label here, or a note they call it. And if you have 2 slashes here, the computer ignores anything after those 2 slashes. So you can write whatever you want here just as a note to yourself to explain what's going on at a particular place. So I'm going to do that. So now I'm going to just work through the logic of what I want to do. And I'll do the first one in great detail, and then the other 4 directions will be just a lot of copying and pasting. So for the right side, if he goes off the left side of the screen, that's his x value. So if his x is less than 0, so that's simply what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask if x is less than 0. Now it's not going to necessarily be 0 because he's got some width to him. So he's got, in order for him to get completely off the screen, we have to make sure that he is in that right position. So I'm going to go 0 minus sprite size divided by 2. Now for you math whizzes out there, you can probably notice here, do I really need this 0? And I don't. And then you would do something like this. Negative sprite size divided by 2. Okay, so so this gives you half of this width there. Now if that is true, then you are going to do this. So you go down to the next line, and it's good habit to indent it a space or 2 here, and you're going to use this squiggly bracket is what I call it. It's actually called a brace, and I will try and zoom in so you can get a better look at it. That's it. It's not a parenthesis. It's a squiggly bracket. It is the key next to the P on the keyboard for an English keyboard. And you have to hit the shift button to select it. Okay, so make sure you've got the right one here. Alright, so now if the x value is less than sprite size, then what we want it to do is we want to have him go to the other side of the room. And this is one way. There's a couple different ways to handle this, but I'm going to set up how to do it. This is one way. So I'm going to go x now equals room width plus sprite size divided by 2. You can put spaces here if you'd like. And just for my own sake, so I can kind of wrap my head about how the math is going, I typically will do this too, because I want to divide that first before I do this. Now GameMaker will do that automatically. It will divide that first. Now I'm going to put a semicolon there. Go to the next line, and I'm going to put another closing squiggly bracket and a semicolon afterwards. Now you may ask, why didn't I put a semicolon there? That's because this is not the end of a command. This is the end of the command. And this is an if. This is called an if-then statement. If this is true, if x is less than minus sprite size divided by 2, then what is between these brackets runs. So if this is true, then x now becomes room width plus sprite size divided by 2. And if I show you this distance from here to here is room width. And then so we add another half size of the sprite, and that will put him completely outside of the room over here. Okay. All right, so now that's for going from off of the left side of the screen. Now to go off the right side of the screen, it's going to be slightly different here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to simply copy this. So this is how I do it. I'll go to the line above, the end of the line above, and just highlight everything like that, and go Control C to copy, then go to the end of this line and go Control V to paste. And now I'm doing the reverse. I'm checking to see if X is larger than, so I change this to larger than, and this room sprite, or this is now what I'm checking to see if he's larger than. So I'm just going to copy this whole thing, copy, and I'm going to paste it up here. And then if this is true, then I want him to go to the left side, which is negative sprite side divided by 2. So I copy this and paste it in this position. Replace that. So if I go off the left side of the screen, that means I'm less than sprite size divided by 2. And then I jump to the right side. That's what this does. And then if X is greater than room width plus sprite size divided by 2, then I go to the other side. Okay. Now to do the Y to the up and down, it's going to be real easy now. All we have to do is copy all of this. Copy it. Go to the end here and paste it again. Now be careful. I'm going to zoom out here again so I make sure I get all the ones I need. I want to be able to see all of them here. So on the second batch here, from here down, you change all your X's to Y's. And again, they have to be lowercase, and I want to stress that your capitalization is absolutely critical, especially when you're dealing with the built-in variables. And in this, again, in these last two lines, or these last two sentences here, you want to make sure that again, all your X's are changed to Y's, and all your room widths are changed to heights. H-G-H-T, there you go. Again, make sure you spell height right. Just my experience, a lot of people switch the I and the E, so make sure that is spelled correctly. It should turn green if you got the default settings. Okay, so now he should wrap screen. So let's give it a shot here. So let's test our game. And just make sure he does. So we turn him. Yep, there he goes. If I go to the left side, see, he appears on the right. Okay, now there's one other issue that you can see with if I just hold that button down, he just gets faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, and as long as I'm holding that button down is as long as I've got to hold it down the other way to get him to stop. So you can see this can become real problematic in a game. So we're going to set a speed limit for this guy. And that code is going to be very simple, and that'll be the end of this video, and then we'll move on to the next. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here. And you see how fast he went there, and the code that's going to get him to stay under the speed limit here is we're going to put it down below here. So again, I'm going to give a couple spaces here and do my double slash, and I'm going to go set, or we can call speed limit. Speed limit. In trucking, they call that a governor. Won't let the ship go any faster than that. Let me zoom in a little bit here so you can hopefully read it. And the code is if speed is greater than, now we created a variable in the create event, remember, called max speed. If speed is greater than max speed, then speed equals max speed, and then make sure you close the squiggly bracket down at the end here. Okay, so there's the code there. Give you a second here to do that. And the reason we put max speed here, this is the variable we created in the create event right here, max speed. this shows this is how fast he can go. So if it turns out he's going too fast, you can reduce that number. If he's going too slow, you can increase that number. So let me go back. Oh, let me need to go to the step event. Okay, so again, there's the code. If speed's greater than max speed, then speed equals max speed. This will keep him from going too fast. And we'll test it here in a second, but one thing I want to note is, and we'll find this out more in other bits of code here, but you see these brackets, the reason they're indented the way they are is so that you can tell that this guy lines up with this guy. These contain each other. These are like the parentheses in a mathematical formula. This is where everything is contained. So these two go together, these two go together. Okay, same thing with this speed and everything. So that's why they're going. All right, so let's test our game, just make sure it works before we move on to the next video. All right, so we turn them, and now I start rocketing off, and you notice he still goes pretty fast, but he doesn't go as fast as he did previously. So this is probably still too fast. But you notice I don't go astronomically fast here, and it doesn't take as long to slow him down as it did before. Okay, so that's it for this video. We're going to move on to the next one. We're going to start adding in the asteroids and put the thrust on there. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. The next thing we're going to do is get him to fire bullets. Okay? All right, we will see you then.